All right, just want to reiterate the candidate rules as we start. So you each have 2 minutes for opening statement and 1.5 seconds, 1.5 to respond. Sorry, excuse me. 1.5 minutes to respond, okay? So make sure you pay attention to Nicole right in the middle, and you will be assisted that way. All right, so opening statement, remember 2 minutes, and then 1.5 minutes to respond. First question goes to, okay, starting with candidate Chopra. Why are you running for this position? And then we'll just go down the road. Sorry, opening statements first, excuse me. Opening statements first. Start with candidate Chopra.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. I'm running for judge because I want to serve my community. I've been serving my community and the state of Indiana for quite a while. Since earning my degree from the Maurer School of Law, I've represented the state of Indiana as a prosecutor in Lawrence County. I quickly became the county's chief deputy prosecuting attorney, which is a position that's appointed by the elected prosecutor. My duties in this role include making charging decisions, overseeing the deputy prosecutors, and being a liaison between our office and the courts. In this time, I've tried cases as the lead attorney or first chair, from theft to domestic battery to child molestation and murder. I've lived in Monroe County for more than 20 years. It's my home, so much so that I was crazy enough to run for city council in 2015. In that election, I defeated the incumbent in the primary by almost 3-1. I've served on the Bloomington Enterprise Association, graduated from the Citizens Academy and Leadership Bloomington Monroe County, and was selected by the Indiana Democratic Party at the state level to participate in its Emerging Leaders program. My husband and I have 2 boys, aged 10 and 11. They attend university school. I'm a homegrown Hoosier. I've been serving Indiana and my community ever since I was 17, when I enlisted in the Indiana Army National Guard. That's why I'm running for judge, to use my legal experience to serve the community I know and I love so well. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Salzman.
Good evening. I'm Emily Salzman. I'm running for Monroe Circuit Court Judge, and I appreciate you hearing me here tonight. As many of you may know, judicial races are unique in that it's not really about a platform of things you promise to do and issues you promise to tackle. It's about who you are, your experiences, and your temperament that would make you a good judge. Experience can come in varying different ways, and mine is best broken down into 3 different categories. Primarily my judicial experience. I've sat in as judge pro tempore for 4 local courts when their judges are unavailable. I've done this 40 times. Those experiences are actually what motivated me to run for judge. Legal experience is also relevant here. My legal experience is critical. I've been part of the local legal system since 2012, and I've been participating in almost every tier of that system, from legal secretary to legal intern to associate to partner, and now managing partner of my firm. Specifically, being a managing partner has given me invaluable experience in administration, supervising staff, budgeting, and accounting. I handle both civil and criminal cases here in Monroe County. I take a paid, appointment, and pro bono cases, which allows me to have an appreciation for all of the issues that face the diverse citizens of Monroe County. My life experience is important. I began learning Spanish at age 5, and the fluency in Spanish has had an incredible influence on all facets of my life. Me he dado un deseo de usar la lengua española en cada parte de mi vida para ayudar a la gente hispanohablante. All of these experiences have made me who I am. A candidate who has the experience of what it is like to be the decision maker, the knowledge to handle a diverse type of cases, and the skills to make all who come before the court feel heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Candidate Wilson.
have over 11 years of legal experience as a deputy prosecutor, a deputy attorney general, a paralegal, and a legal assistant. I'm also the mother of a 20 and a 16-year-old raised in Monroe County. I have civil and criminal litigation experience.
Excuse me, could you make sure your mic is on? Let's try you now.
Can you hear me?
Perfect, thank you.
Could I start again?
Yes,
Thank you. Good evening. Can you hear me now?
yes.
Well, that's now nice to meet you. Good evening. My name is April Wilson, and I'm running for Monroe County Circuit Court Judge, Seat 7. I have over 11 years of legal experience as a deputy prosecutor, a deputy attorney general, a paralegal, and a legal assistant. I'm also the mother of a 20 and a 16-year-old raised in Monroe County. I have civil and criminal litigation experience, civil and criminal jury trial experience, and I've practiced in state and federal court throughout the state of Indiana. Additionally, as a prior domestic violence prosecutor and current felony deputy serving on the child protection team, I've worked with community partners in challenging areas involving families and children. In addition to my professional experience, I bring significant lived experience. I've been a 19-year-old single mother. I've been the partner of a service member during deployments. And the year I started law school is the year my oldest child started kindergarten. Over the years, there have been challenges that have taught me the values of compassion and community, and I'm a product of communities that have cared. As someone who works in the system every day and who's managed personally the challenges of childcare and transportation with limited resources, who's had more than one second job along the way and knows that every hour of work missed has an impact, I hope to reduce the number of pretrial conferences, ensure that hearings start on time, and to increase the use of Zoom to lower the barriers to participation and reduce the impact of contact with the justice system. And that's because I'm running for judge, because I'm committed to improving the justice system for everyone. I'm a mother, I'm a litigator, I'm a public servant, and I ask for your vote on May 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Rinbeck.
Yep. Thank you. Good evening to everyone in attendance here tonight and watching online, elected officials, and also all my fellow candidates. I have to start by thanking the Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus for hosting this event, and also the Indiana Latino Democratic Caucus for the 9th District. I know event planning takes a lot of time and effort, and I'm really grateful for all the time you put in setting this up. I also want to thank Ms. Reese and Mr. Sims for moderating. Thank you. My name is Karen Renbeck. I'm running for judge for Seat 7. My Monroe County story starts in 2009. I moved to Bloomington for law school at IU. I'd only visited once before, but I immediately fell in love with the town, the college, and especially the rolling hills down here in southern Indiana. I met my husband, Chris, actually my very first week of law school, and we got married in 2018 here at the Indiana Memorial Union. We've lived all over town, Bryan Park, East Side, West Side, near West Side, but we finally bought a house recently on the South Side here in town. I'm the first person on either side of my family to ever run for anything, so this is a really big deal for me, so thank you all. For the past 8 years, I've served our community as a deputy public defender here in Monroe County. I'll be talking more about that tonight, so for the opening statement, I was hoping to just talk about a few things you may not already know about me. I'm currently serving in my second year as the president of the Monroe County Bar Association. I've also served on Monroe County's mental health court previously. I administer the Public Defender's Office internship program. We've had over 45 interns since 2017. And I also formed a partnership between my office and the IU School of Social Work. So we host social work interns who help us assist our clients. I'm honored to be endorsed by both the Monroe County Young Dems and the Stonewall Democrats of South Central Indiana. I'm also supported by the Democratic Women's Caucus, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you all tonight, more about myself, my background, and my campaign. So thank you all again for watching and attending.
Thank you. Now we get to go to the first question. I was so excited earlier. All right, so we'll start with candidate Salzman. Why are you running for this position?
I'm running because of my experiences as judge pro tempore, as I said. So I'll refer to it as judge pro tem. Some of you might be wondering what that means. What does a judge pro tem do, and what kind of hearings do they really see? In my experience sitting as judge pro tem, because I've done it so much, I've had the ability to accept or reject both misdemeanor and felony changes of plea and sentencings, find probable cause and set bail for countless cases, engage in pretrial release decisions where we balance the equities of releasing someone because they might lose their job or their housing, and making that decision within the request of the public defender's office and the prosecutor's office, and also modifying no contact orders in which hearings in which maybe 3 different positions were voiced between the prosecutor, the victim, and the defense. These experiences are what prompted me to run for judge, because I learned something important that I wouldn't otherwise have known necessarily. In law school for 3 years, we're taught to advocate and fight for our position. But it's different to be the decision maker, to hear all sides fully and make a fair and just decision. As an attorney, I help my client and I serve them while advocating for them. But as a judge, I found that I helped all those involved by reaching a fair and just decision and making sure that they felt heard in the courtroom. This allowed me to serve a wider part of the community. I know I can do this and do this well because I have sat in that chair and I have made those decisions, and I hope to continue doing so as your next circuit court judge.
Thank you. Candidate Wilson, same question. Why are you running for this position?
Because I want the system to be better. And even if elected, I would give the same answer in 6 years. I think if you work in the justice system, you have to strive every day to be better than you were the day before. And that's because no matter what your role may be, whether it may be a public defender, a private defense attorney, or prosecutors, or judge, we make decisions that impact people's lives. And we need judges with the professional and personal experience to make those difficult decisions. I bring that experience to this race, and I'm ready to serve as the next Monroe County Circuit Court judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, candidate Renbeck, excuse me, sorry.
That's okay. Renbeck.
Renbeck,
Thanks.
candidate Renbeck.
Uh-huh.
Same question, why are you running for this position?
Yes. I'm a public defender, and we need more public defenders on the bench. Being a public defender means I don't choose my clients or their cases. They're assigned to me, and they're assigned because they can't afford to hire a private attorney. I love charts and data and statistics, so I would like to share one quick statistic with you all. In 2021, 70% of all criminal cases filed in Monroe County were assigned an attorney from the Monroe County Public Defender's Office. This is a pretty staggering number, but when you think about it, that staggering number isn't really very well reflected in our current judiciary. I have years of experience working with my clients who are struggling with mental illness and substance use disorder, housing instability, and poverty. I've handled all types of criminal cases and almost all types of civil cases. We're all running for the seat that's currently held by Judge Steve Galvin. He's retiring, and I'm experienced to immediately handle his caseload if that's what I'm assigned. I practice in his court every day, and I'm the only one who does that. There's a lot of public defender skills that I think can be seen in the best judges that we have in our community. I can speak about legal issues in simple terms so people understand what's happening. When people are upset or disruptive, I know how to de-escalate the situation and help everyone to calm down. Public defenders and judges share a really important responsibility to protecting people's rights. I'm calm under pressure. It's pretty hard to get me riled up. Bottom line, I'm the only candidate who represents indigent members of our community in the trenches every single day. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, candidate Chopra.
I think I kind of answered this question in my opening. I do believe I answered this question in my opening. I didn't get everything I wanted to say in there, but you can always go to my website to see what my resume tells you. There's a lot more to it than 2 minutes. I'm nearly 40, so I've done a lot in my life. Let's see. I wanted to quickly address a couple of points that my fellow candidates have brought up. First up is Emily's comment about judge tempore. Let me explain something. I cannot be a judge tempore. I've been a prosecutor since I've been an attorney. I cannot do that because there would be too many conflicts. Same with April and the same with Karen. It just would not be feasible. So that's a unique experience.
Let's make sure we're responding to the question and not to the other candidates. Just wanted to make sure of that. You can't respond to the other candidates.
Okay.
You have to respond
I'll
only
just
to
go ahead
me.
and explain the issue of what pro tempore is and that type of thing.
As long as it's responding to the question, why are you running for the position, and not attacking the fellow
No,
candidate.
absolutely not. I just think
Okay.
a little edification would be helpful for everyone. But I can talk to you offline if you have questions about that. I went door to door a couple days ago. Can I reserve my time for that? Thank you. I went door to door a couple days ago, and I met a guy, man in a neighborhood, and he said to me, what's the difference between a prosecutor as a judge and a defense attorney as a judge? And I said, well, that's an interesting question. And I said, should be nothing. There should be no difference between someone who's represented the state, a defendant who's been a civil litigator. As a prosecutor, I advocate for the state right now. But when I become judge, I will basically be neutered. We're not even allowed to attend political events like a Democratic forum when you're a judge. So thank you.
Before we move on to our next question and pass it over to Moderator Sims, I want us to be mindful of we do not address anything towards one another as within the frame, and then also we want to avoid any type of personal attacks or cleaning anything up. Just focus on the question because we're all Dems. All right, Moderator Sims.
Thank you. With this next question, we'll start with candidate Wilson. And the question is, what, if anything, do you see as issues with the Monroe County Jail? And what is your vision for correcting those issues?
Thank you. I think if we want to be better than we were the day before, then we need to be open to information that helps us understand how to move forward. The Monroe County Criminal Justice and Incarceration, oh, it is actually on, I think I'm just soft-spoken. The Monroe County Criminal Justice and Incarceration Study specifically looked at the Monroe County Jail. And what it found in its conclusions was that the jail is beyond its life cycle, that the jail is not structurally designed for spaces for additional healthcare services, that it's not structurally designed for spaces for programming for those individuals who are trying to re-enter into society, and that it has a lack of space when you're trying to address safety and security issues, when there might be a specialized need. Now, as a prosecutor who makes decisions every single day and addresses individual cases, I can tell you when we have lack of options, we also lose avenues of resolution that is individualized and specific to each individual case and need. And as a judge, I would be working with the jail regularly to hear from them what those individual service gaps are, to understand what the situation is in the jail so I make practical decisions that fit those individual needs. And I would also volunteer to assist with the Justice Committee, which is evaluating that report and seeing how we can implement and better serve every member of our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Candidate Renbeck, do you remember, or do I have to repeat it?
That's all right. Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you. Like the
Thank
bird.
you.
Thanks. I've visited my clients in jail for the last 8 years, so I'm pretty confident I've spent more time in the jail than any other candidate, except perhaps some of them running for sheriff. I've seen it all. I've seen the cell blocks, the attorney meeting rooms, the law library, the kitchens, the gym. I could go on and on. The criminal justice study that was done in 2020, there's a quote from it that's really resonated with me, and I'd like to share it. It says, "The jail facility is failing and cannot ensure consistent and sustainable provision of constitutional rights of incarcerated persons." I could talk about the study for hours. I'll spare you all. It's pretty long. It's 254 pages, but I do think it is required reading for anyone who cares about our court system. The study's conclusions, as April already kind of briefly went through, are pretty unsurprising if you've ever been in the jail. The conditions up there are poor, the design is not great, and the jail is always at or above capacity. I'm not satisfied with our jail, and I think all judges should know exactly what the conditions are like up there. There's lots of services that are meant to help people avoid future involvement in our court system, things like GED classes, job training, employment. We don't offer that in our jail. The final decision about what to do with the jail, though, isn't up to the judges. It's up to the commissioners and to the council because they're in charge of buildings and budget. However, when I'm judge, I would demand to be part of that conversation because I want to make sure that everyone who has an opinion on this is heard, everyone in our court system. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Candidate Chopra, would you prefer that I reread the question? Or yes, sir. Thank you.
That we can all agree that overcrowding at the jail is the main concern. We clearly need a new jail. As much as I hate to spend money, seeing money being spent on incarceration. It just needs to happen because it's a fact of life and it's not going away anytime soon. I will work with the county officials, the commissioners, as part of the Board of Judges to get that done. That's essential. I will say that I'm most concerned about the number of homeless and drug-addicted people in our jail. I want to ensure that any new jail addresses these issues, including reentry plans, addiction therapy, and medication for those sick with addiction, and psychiatric medication for those suffering from mental illnesses. One of the problems with this is that a lot of times people aren't actually in the jail long enough to receive these services, and of course we're not going to keep someone in a jail to receive services. As a judge, if assigned to a criminal docket, I will be a gatekeeper to the jail. It is sometimes very difficult to make the decision on release of a defendant. However, Indiana Criminal Rule 26 is a guide for those decisions. Basically, people are allowed should be released from jail should they not be able to afford bond. Thank you. Look it up. Thanks.
Thank you for your answer. And for the benefit of our audience, I will repeat, not that you need it, but I will repeat the question. And it is, what, if anything, do you see as issues with the Monroe County Jail? And what is your vision for correcting those issues? Candidate Salzman.
My focus in my practice is criminal defense. So many people in the system are aware that there are significant issues with the jail, but I literally see them with my own eyes. I was in the jail just a few days ago to see a client. I have seen a client who contracted pink eye in the jail due to unsanitary conditions, and it swept through their entire block because there wasn't a way to separate or get enough sanitation to actually address the issue. So these concerns are very, very real to me because I see them with my clients. Through my experience in the jail, there are two issues that really jump out: is overcrowding, and then it's a dated facility. We do need a new facility. That was conclusively determined by the study. My specific vision for the jail really is a matter of working with many stakeholders. There's cascading effects. If you don't understand our current criminal justice system, you really have to understand that there's cascading effects through so many different places if you make any change to the criminal justice system, from courts, sheriff, county commissioners, county counsel, prosecutor, public defender, probation, and private attorneys, because we don't get a ton of attention, but we have to accommodate everything else that everyone else does as well. The pod structure is an incredibly good idea that would help everyone's experience of the jail, but none of these ideas and great ideas that have been thrown out by different stakeholders are going to work unless we all work together. We need a judge who understands how the system works and has the relationships with local officials to implement it.
Thank you. Candidate Rimbeck, this goes to you. What values are important to have as a judge?
Yes. As in past elections, when I'm deciding who I'm voting for to be judge, I'm looking for 5 pretty specific qualities. First, empathy. Judges have to be able to meet parties where they are. People are often very scared, intimidated, and the legal system can be really uncertain, especially if you've been mistreated by the system before. Second, efficiency. Judges should do their absolute best to keep to the court calendar so that parties and attorneys aren't waiting hours after a hearing is scheduled and still waiting, and it still hasn't happened. Judges should also be promoting using Zoom whenever they can. It's a big accessibility. It's really helped us a lot. It's eliminated a lot of barriers when you can just jump on court from home. Third, patience. Judges need to be even-tempered and not quick to strike out when someone says something that they disagree with. Fourth, fairness. Judges have to hear all the evidence, all the information before them, and not jump to any conclusions. And finally, transparency. Judges have to be willing to have their decisions scrutinized and even appealed, and because the decision to voice opposition to a decision someone makes or to appeal a decision, those are absolute rights, and they must absolutely be respected. Thank you.
Thank you. Question goes to candidate Chopra. What values are important to have as a judge?
I think that we're probably all going to say that judges should be fair, impartial, unbiased, and that's just the bare minimum for a judge. I think that we need to get past that bare minimum and talk about what kind of person is going to do more than just be fair and impartial and treat people with equity. That's the expectation, right? So what I would look for in a judge, if I were voting, of course I'd vote for myself, but I would be looking for someone who is decisive, who is, has a strength of character to make very hard decisions. I would be looking for someone who is honest, someone who, almost to a fault, is honest, and who, if sees a problem, like an ethical problem, says something and stops everything until that ethical problem is dealt with before a decision is made. Some people know me as someone who will put their foot in the mud because something is not right and something isn't fair, and won't move forward until that inequity is dealt with. So again, I would be looking for someone who's bare minimum, fair, and impartial. That's an oath that we take as judges, and who also is willing to do the hard work and have a stiff spine to be able to call out injustices when they see them and talk to counsel about that and rectify them before moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Salzman, what values are important to have as a judge?
There are innate values and characteristics of what it means to be a judge in our country. To hear issues fully, to treat litigants with dignity and respect, and to apply the law equally and fairly among all. This is just what it means to be a judge in our country and in our society. But more than that, right now, society lacks civil discourse, and it's reaching all parts of our society, including our courts. Temperament is essential in a courtroom where emotions are high and the stakes are dire for everyone involved. By its nature, our system is adversarial. But the adversarial system does not mean that the people in it shouldn't be treated with dignity and respect and compassion. In many courtrooms where I have stood, whether as a judge pro tempore, an attorney, or an intern, I have always strived to treat everyone with kindness, dignity, and respect. And those are the principles and values that I would take into the courtroom if I continue serving our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Wilson, again, what values are important to have as a judge?
Thank you. Compassion, patience, and fair-mindedness. When we talk about finding justice, what we're talking about is not just making a decision, it's making a decision in context. And to understand that context, we need compassion. Compassion allows us to be open to other people's perspectives and to other people's viewpoints and to understand that context. Equally, we need patience. Although being decisive as a judge is foundational, knowing when to be still is equally important. And individuals who've experienced trauma, who might be in the midst of crisis, whether that be familial, financial, mental health, may struggle to tell a story linearly and may express that grief and trauma and fear in different ways. And making sure we are patient to hear every aspect of that case to make an informed decision is a necessary quality for any judge. And once you've gathered all that information, you then have to make a decision that's fair. That comes down to perspective, and that's something you can gain also with experience. And I would make decisions as the next Monroe County Circuit Court judge with compassion, fairness, and patience. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank all the candidates for your answers up to this point. Our next question, and we will start with candidate Chopra. And the question is, how would you handle actual or potential conflicts of interest?
This is a great question. It's an easy one. Being a judge is all about being ethical. It's about being someone that you trust to make the right decisions when it comes down to it. And I have been in this position with conflicts of interest in the prosecutor's office. Many people deal with conflicts of interest in any form that they practice legally. If it's even close, if I'm even asking myself, is this a conflict? Psh, done, it's a conflict. It's that easy. If I'm asking myself or getting a second opinion from someone, then it's clear that if there's even that appearance of impropriety, even the appearance, like, well, no, I'm not biased towards this person, or no, I don't have anything, we were friends way back when, and, my husband's best friends, but really I can handle this in a non-biased way. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to even display the appearance of impropriety as a judge? So it's an easy question. I would decline the case. Hopefully one of my wonderful colleagues would pick it up, and I would do the same for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Same question to candidate Salzman. How would you handle actual or potential conflicts of interest?
Thank you. The watchword when it comes to conflict of interest is transparency. Whenever there is a potential or an existing conflict of interest, we need to establish a record and use the mechanisms that already exist within the law and the judicial canons to address it. A recusal is a tool. It is not a red flag or a white flag of defeat for a judge. It means that you cannot make a fair decision, and you have both the awareness and the integrity to state that you must remove yourself from the situation. And so this is a tool that is always available to a judge and should be used as such. The ethical canons guide us, and they do say that even the appearance of impropriety, the mere appearance of impropriety, should be avoided. Because the mere appearance of impropriety erodes people's faith in the system. And even if it is a just result, they will not receive it as well, and they will not trust that the judge did their job as well if there is an appearance of impropriety. And I would have the rules and the canons guide any judge, and they would guide me. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Wilson, same question. How would you handle actual or potential conflicts of interest?
Well, I'd like to take a step back. I think as judicial candidates and as judicial officers, we should be proactive. I think we're called upon by the judicial canon to make sure that our conduct is not affecting that question of impartiality. But of course, that can't eliminate it. So when it does arise, I think it's important to take a minute and take a step and reflect. Sometimes when we see something that might be a conflict of interest, we need to evaluate it. We need to go back and look at the rule to make sure we understand the rule. And it's not just what we remember when we were in law school or what we thought it was, but what the rule actually states. And then once we've evaluated and determined if there is a conflict of interest, even if there isn't, I would join and share with my fellow candidates who say even the appearance of that lack of impartiality would mean that you would have to transfer that case. But I think it takes a careful examination and evaluating and checking the rule before making a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. And lastly, to answer this question, candidate Renbeck,
Thank you.
how would you handle actual or potential conflicts of interest?
Thank you. This is not new territory for me. As a public defender, this is something we have to do pretty regularly, is look at the rules, look at the case that we're facing, and determine if we need to recuse ourselves and request outside counsel be appointed. The process for judges is very similar. You have to look at the rules, both for attorneys and for judges, look at the case, and if you believe there's a conflict, you have to notify the parties and disqualify yourself. It's fairly straightforward, and it's especially straightforward here in Monroe County because we have what's called a unified court system, which means we have 9 circuit courts. They are all equivalent to each other. Some counties have things like superior courts and city courts that are sort of lower and do different types of cases. So here, if you recuse yourself, any of the other courts is able to handle that case. It doesn't need to be sent out of county, or it doesn't need to go anywhere sort of special. The rules for judges in conflicts are very clear. It says, a judge shall disqualify herself in any proceeding where the judge's impartiality might be questioned. A good example of this would be cases that involve my current or former clients. I can't handle their cases as a judge because I know confidential information about them, and that's not fair. I would be obviously more than happy to recuse myself from any cases involving those clients. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next question first goes to candidate Salzman. What is your judicial philosophy in regards to marginalized communities?
It is innate in a judge that their philosophy for handling everyone is fairness and impartiality, and treating all those that come before them with respect and dignity. But it is important to be aware that implicit bias exists. It exists in our own minds, and it exists in our society. It's critical that awareness that that implicit bias exists allows us to attend to it. And I promise that I would be very aware of those prejudices and implicit biases that exist in our society and that might exist in my own mind. I also promise that I would be sensitive to those issues facing marginalized communities. I'd be sensitive to those, and I have a track record of that because I was actually raised by Hispanic educators. Had teachers from the age of 5 that were all Hispanic American and knew what those issues were that faced those citizens, or non-citizens, as it were. La gente hispanoamericana me educó, no solo en los temas de matemáticas y ciencia, pero en los asuntos reales, con que la gente hispanohablante en este país luchan cada día. For those issues where I am ignorant, I promise to avail myself of every educational opportunity to learn more. I'm sure many people in this room can educate me, and I hope that you do.
Thank you. Candidate Wilson.
As a judge and a prosecutor, we are charged with ensuring the fair and equitable treatment of every individual. And that's the foundation of justice. But for those in our community who have felt unheard, forgotten, excluded, saying that everyone should be treated fairly may feel like an unfulfilled promise. And I think as judges, we need to be aware of that history, and we need to work every single day to earn the trust of our community. And the only way I know how to earn trust is by actions. And for judges, that means we need to consistently make decisions that are fair and impartial or relevant if they're popular. It means we need to be the model of impartiality. That's something we're beginning here as judicial candidates. Frequently, I'm doing door-to-door or filling out answers to questions, and people will ask me my positions on issues. And even if it might be helpful to answer those questions, the greatest respect I can show for this office and for the position I'd like to hold and to earn the trust of my community is to stay steadfast and impartial and to not answer those questions. And that is the way that I'll serve the community as a Monroe County Circuit Court judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Rimbeck.
Sure. As a public defender, I practice client-centered representation. That means that I give my clients the ability and right to make decisions about what happens with their case and how best to achieve whatever outcome they want. And I just provide them with advice and information on their options. And I've found this practice to be particularly impactful to those who are part of marginalized communities because they have often been treated poorly by our system or others and sometimes have not felt respected or heard. It's clear that historically our nation's legal system has disproportionately affected members of marginalized communities, and I'm absolutely concerned about this issue in every court system, and I'd be worried if somebody wasn't concerned about this. As a public defender, it's really common to represent clients who are inherently mistrustful of the system. I've faced a lot of preconceived notions about myself and my work, things that like I'm paid by the case when people plead guilty, or I must have settled for this job because I couldn't find anything else, or I might someday get to be a real attorney. That's a particular favorite. I have to do a lot of work to overcome these preconceived notions, and I show up, put in the work, and my clients get to see that. These preconceived notions for public defenders do overlap a lot with judges. My goal as judge would be for parties to have confidence that I've heard them and that I am dedicated to properly resolving their case for them, however that ends up happening. As judge, it would be my obligation to follow the law and protect everyone's constitutional rights, and I would absolutely vow to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Chopra.
Thank you. I was concerned about this question, and I hope that I've proven to you this evening that I have a deep reverence for the law and ethics and the judicial canon. I actually spoke to a local judge about answering this question. And what I can say is that I believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all people. I'll say it again, I will treat everyone with fairness and respect and equally. Now, some may think that I'm dodging this question. I certainly am not. I think a lot of folks who watched the confirmation hearing of Judge Brown Jackson thought she was dodging some questions. She wasn't. She explained many times, many questions, that they were political questions and that her ethics, her judicial ethics, refrain her from asking those questions. And so I hope that you can respect that answer because I do believe that it is the most ethical answer that I can give tonight. And I hope you can hear me because my microphone is off, but I bet you can. I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas. I know you really wanted to hear my answer to that question, so I'll find a clip of it and send it to you. Thank you.
From my view, it looked like it was on, but now that you, thank you. I thought it was on, sorry.
Fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all so much for your questions. We have been instructed as moderators that if there's time, then we have a whole nother list of questions. But I think we have time for one more. And we will start this round with candidate Wilson. And if you, for some reason, feel you can't answer, then please explain why, please. But the question is, starting with candidate Wilson, if elected, what will you do to improve the quality of life for Black and brown residents?
I think the approach in this question is similar to the last, and that as a judge, and I can tell you as a prosecutor, I think ensuring the fair and equitable treatment of every single person that I interact with is the foundation of justice. And one of the ways in terms of some of the training that I've had, I can tell you that I've participated in implicit bias training to make sure that when I'm making decisions, that I'm making those decisions fairly and impartially. And I would encourage and be open to any of my judicial staff or those within the Justice Building to also participate in that implicit bias training. And I think it also comes down to, as a judge, to making decisions where I treat each individual that I interact with dignity and respect, to make sure they feel heard and welcomed, even when I make decisions that they may disagree with. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Renbeck, same question. If elected, what will you do to improve the quality of life for Black and brown residents?
This is a particularly tough question for judicial candidates. As you've heard, we're not permitted to make specific promises or even really to have a platform in the same way that the sheriff or a county council member could. Judges don't pass laws, and judges don't control budgets in the way that one might think in order to affect programs that might help people. However, there is something that really matters, and that's judicial buy-in. So the Indiana Supreme Court directed all Indiana counties to start these pretrial release programs, which are discouraging the use of cash bail. If our local judges had wanted to, they could have torpedoed this program by just ignoring the recommendations, not following them, and continuing to use cash bail, even though they've sort of been directed not to. We had judicial buy-in, and ultimately that really mattered to our community in the end. Monroe County has a history of stepping up. We've done this many times over, and we've operated as the pilot county for lots of different programs from the Indiana Supreme Court. In 2007, we were the very first county to join My Case, which is an online website that anyone can access cases at. It took 13 years for the 92nd county to join, but they're finally in. As judge, I would want to keep pushing for innovation and programs like that so that we can be on the forefront of new, developing technologies and developing programs. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Candidate Chopra, same question, please. If elected, what will you do to improve the quality of life for Black and brown residents?
Thank you. I can't answer this question because of my judicial code of ethics, and I do believe that any answer would get political. And I do think that all the women up here today answered that question similarly because we all are competent and understand the law, so I appreciate that. So I had one other thing that I wanted to add, but I'm trying to ring through it. Give me 1 second. Nope, that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you for your response. Candidate Salzman, same question. If elected, what will you do to improve the quality of life for Black and brown residents?
I don't want to repeat myself, and I'll echo my fellow candidates that I can't tell you specifically how I would rule depending on who is in front of me. I cannot, and it wouldn't be fair to anyone in this room or anyone who would ever come before me if I did. What I can promise is that I'm a big believer in knowing what you don't know. And I can tell you that there are issues which I never experienced and which I probably never can completely understand. But what I can tell you is that I will make every effort in my power to continue to learn, both from you and from others, to keep trying to understand. Thank you.
All right, thank you, candidates. This is our closing statements time. So each candidate, you have 1 minute for a closing statement, and we will start with candidate Wilson. Is that correct? Rimbeck, excuse me. Candidate Rimbeck.
I've answered a lot of questions since announcing my candidacy, but some are asked pretty often. Are you the one with those bright pink signs? Yes. What do you think about Judge Katanji Brown-Jackson? Usually my answer is, like, how much time do you have? I could talk about her forever. In large part, thanks to Judge Brown-Jackson, there's been an ongoing conversation in our community about the value of public defenders to society. Being a public defender isn't just a job for me, it's part of my identity. I've been the only person standing between my client and the system, and that's a heavy burden. We need judges who've been in the trenches every day, who have experience working with real people in our community who are struggling. If anyone has questions for me, I'd love to talk with you. My literature's outside. Please reach out. I hope this forum has showed you why I believe that I'm the best and most qualified candidate for judge, and I'm asking for your vote in the primary on May 3rd or at early voting starting tomorrow, if you can believe it. Again, I'm Karen Renbeck. I'm running for judge for seat 7, and I thank you for your attention and your time tonight.
Thank you, candidate Chopra.
Because a judge is not a political position, it seems odd that we're attached to a Democratic Party. But this is not a race about who's most liberal. It's not a race about who has necessarily even the most experience or who's done what. This is a race asking you, who do you trust? Who has been authentic with you? And I can tell you, I know probably about 75%, and that's being conservative, in this room. And I'm pretty sure, as I look you in the eye, I have always been honest with you, even if you didn't like it. I have always been upfront with you. I have always done the right thing, even if you did not think that it was. So when you go to the polls, maybe tomorrow, maybe on May 3rd, I'd appreciate your vote because you know that I am someone who is going to follow the law, be fair and impartial, and diligently do my job for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Salzman.
Thank you very much. As we reach the election on May 3rd and you cast your vote, I hope you will consider this. I am committed to this community where I have lived for 15 years and where I'm raising my children. I'm committed to the legal system in which I have grown and served since 2012. I am committed to work with the Board of Judges to continuously evaluate and improve the administration of justice in this county. I'm committed to hear the facts fully and apply the law fairly in all cases. I'm committed to treating everyone with respect and dignity regardless of their circumstances. I'm committed to making fair and timely decisions with an even temperament. Estoy comprometida a ser tu próxima juez. I am committed to be your next circuit court judge. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Candidate Wilson.
Thank you. I want to thank the Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus and the Indiana Latino Democratic Caucus, everyone in attendance, and my fellow candidates. As we start early voting tomorrow, I just wanted to share a few of the ways in which I'm different from my colleagues. I have more legal experience than any other candidate in my race. And as a deputy prosecutor, where most cases are resolved by negotiated plea agreement, I have the most experience being a decider. And although all of us at this table work in the trenches, I have lived in them. And those experiences have been formative. And from my professional and lived experiences, I will bring compassion, patience, and make fair and just decisions. I thank you for your time tonight, and I ask for your vote on May 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We can go ahead and give a round of applause to our candidates.